Before I continue, is the volume okay, the mic and everything?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
That's very good, very good. And my video is clear too? My video is also connected. Is that okay? Very good, excellent. Okay, so thank you very much once again, and appreciation to Rachel too, who set this up. I understood she's not able to make it today, but we had the discussion a few weeks ago, and she mentioned what she's doing and what she'd like me to talk about. And essentially, I gave the topic career development. Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
We can see you too.
Okay, that's perfect. That's very good. Excellent. So really the topic for today,
Hear you very well.
That's good. Thank you. So the topic for today really is on career development, entrepreneurship, leadership, and really I wanted to put this in the context of the new age, because I'm sure, as you can all appreciate, that there's a lot that is happening now in this new age and this new season. And in fact, what I tend to see or class what we're going through now is almost like a black swan moment. It's something that they've coined a black swan moment. And it's something that often happens every sort of 10 to 20 years, be it 9/11, be it the global recession in 2009, or the Gulf War that happened some 30 years ago or so. And it's really a divine moment that is caused by either a natural or man-made pandemic. But clearly, what is unique about what we're going through now, this COVID-19 pandemic, is it's something that is really impacting the whole world, and it's having a significant impact on almost every sector of employment and of business that you can think about in society. So there's real importance to really look a bit more in depth as to what is going to happen during this period and after this period. And what I really believe is that those who are braced to seize on the opportunity that will come post-COVID will do amazingly well. Because essentially those who stood tall before the COVID period, they were almost indestructible, you could say. But now really it presents an opportunity, a leveling where anyone could really just rise with that new tide. And really my hope and desire is that, no one lets this crisis just go to waste, because, these things don't happen often. Maybe it's once a lifetime. So if there's one thing I just want everyone to ask themselves, and if you're noting things down in your notebook, just ask yourselves, what are you doing in this moment to make sure that you could benefit post-COVID out of this situation that is happening today? So, just to introduce myself, I'll introduce myself again. Thanks for the initial introduction. I had always wanted to be an aeronautical engineer. From as far back as I can remember, I've always loved airplane. As a young boy, I would just look at airplanes in the sky. I was actually born in UK. I was born in London, and I lived about 5 kilometers away from Heathrow Airport in London, which actually it's the biggest airport in the world. So I would spend my childhood days just looking at airplanes in the sky. And this was my passion. It was my hobby. When I would draw pictures, I would draw airplanes. When I would read books, it would be airplane books. So really, I knew very early on in my own self exactly what I wanted to become with regards to the career direction. So what I always did was I always sort of tailored my career towards that direction. And purpose is really strong, and I'll talk about that later on. But I guess what I really wanted to highlight as well is that I actually came back to Ghana. I did my JSS in Ghana. I went to Jack and Jill in Roman Ridge. And when I came back to Ghana, I spent about 2-3 years in Ghana. And to be honest, I just fell in love with Ghana. The culture, the art, the food, you name it. I came and then I went back for college, for university, for work. And essentially 5 years ago, I returned back to Ghana. And it's ironic because I speak to many people in Ghana, in society these days, and everyone is sort of looking to, I mean, many people are born here and then they're looking to get out. But I actually had the reverse experience where I was born abroad and I was looking to come back in. And, you know, really for me, I've had the opportunity to travel quite a lot. I mean, as I mentioned, I lived in the UK. I lived in France as well. I worked for Airbus for 7 years in France. I've lived in Dubai. Now I'm back to Ghana, and I can tell you honestly, for me, just having visited about 50 countries in the world, 30 countries in Africa, I can honestly say that for me, I can see my purpose and my reasoning for being back home here because of the opportunity level and so much more. But I mean, that's not to say that for someone else, you know, their mission or what they want to accomplish career-wise may be in another country. I mean, someone may want to be an astronaut or work for NASA, you know, so clearly US is going to be the country for them. But, you know, really what I told myself, and I think this is something that every individual needs to tell themselves, that wherever you are located, wherever you live, you will make something happen for yourself and you will make the conditions work for you. And that's important. I mean, I tell myself in a boastful way that, you know, you put me on Antarctica and I will succeed there because I've got the mentality of success. So really just to say that, you know, no matter where you are, no matter where you want to get to, just make your present situation of where you currently are work for you, for your good. So, you know, I mean, I spoke about my passion in aviation. I spoke about that every single job that I did as a youth, as a teenager, was leading me towards aviation. I mean, when I was a teenager, I was even working as a cleaner, you know, just to earn pocket money, and I was cleaning the interior of aircraft. I was that passionate, you know. I would have hobbies, my recreational activities. I would fly these model aircraft and build model aircrafts. So basically, I was so focused that almost every choice I had an affinity towards aviation. And that sort of brings me to a quote I wanted to make about a book that I read recently by Malcolm Gladwell. And in the book, he said that whatever you give consistently 10,000 hours to, it could be of anything, you will excel and you will become great in that area. Now, 10,000 hours is the equivalent of 2 to 3 hours spent every day for the space of 10 years. And, you know, one of the things I really believe, honestly, is that what you naturally spend your time doing has a link to your interests and your purpose in terms of what you want to do with your life, where you see yourself moving with regards to your career, which, by the way, is a huge part of your life. So, you know, when people say, you know, they don't quite know what it is they want to do, what I typically ask them is, what do you naturally spend your time doing? I mean, if you had no job, if you had no obligations, what would you naturally do with your time? And, you know, that's not to say that, listen, I mean, if I had no time, I would be on YouTube or I'd be on Facebook just, you know, watching videos. Now, there's a difference between consuming data and creating data, you know, because you can be on YouTube and you could be looking at, you know, perhaps the work that someone is doing, you know, it could be something like in hair, someone creates hair or makeup, you know, and you could just be watching the videos, but, you know, someone else could be watching it and thinking, wow, I'm learning something, you know what, I could do something much better what this person is doing. They have 50,000 followers, you know, I could do much better than that. So, you know, there could be a direction there. So really, you know, it's evidence in where does your creativity go, not necessarily what do you consume. And, you know, it's important because I typically tell people that, listen, we're designed to create. We're not designed to be consumers, you know, and your life purpose is in line with what you are instinctively creating. And, you know, that's why we're also, it's a substance of who we are. We're human beings, not human doings. You know, we are people who are people, and that differentiates us from animals who can only do animal stuff. We can be individuals and do things which are unique in our own right. So, you know, really that just leads us on to what is purpose. And, I like to start at this level rather than just diving into the career talk, because it's just so fundamental in terms of everything that we do. Purpose is really crucial, and understanding what your life mission and purpose is fundamental. And some people don't realize that they need to know their life purpose, but instinctively they know what that life purpose is, if you understand what I mean. And this is fundamental, particularly for people in their young age, because, I mentioned the quote about the 10,000 hour rule, which, you may need about 10 years to be able to do that 2-3 hours per day. You don't want to get to the age of 30 or 40 and start questioning, what is my life all about? Let me start discovering, and now let me start investing these 10,000 hours so that I become good at what it is I want to be. No, it's important to understand now what your purpose is. And, I sort of link everything back to airplanes. It's just how I think. An airplane is fabricated by millions of components that are brought together. That's what makes an airplane work. It's millions of different components. Now get this, every single component on the aircraft has a purpose. Every single component has a reason for being there, for being present. And in fact, if it didn't have a reason for being there, it would be removed. It would be removed because the more weight that you add onto an aircraft, the less its performance becomes, the more fuel it burns. So we're trying to make aircraft as light as possible. So anything that is on there that doesn't have a purpose is removed. And I like to link that to how the world is. I mean, there's 7 billion, 8 billion, almost 8 billion people in the world. And I personally believe every single person has a divine purpose. Every one of those 8 billion people. And to the extent that some people try and imitate someone else, what happens with an imitation is it's usually of no effect. It's usually just worth discarding. The original is all you need. So, this is the importance of really understanding what is your goal and what is your purpose. And, as an engineer, I've learned to do that in a very distinct way. I remember back in university, my engineering professor told me that if something cannot be explained in 2 or 3 sentences, we're engineers, we're not lawyers or, if something can't be explained succinctly in 2 or 3 sentences, then the purpose of that thing isn't fully understood. So I'll just give you an example of what I believe and what I know my purpose to be. My purpose really is just to be a man of influence and inspiration. And influence by leading change in Africa and driving socioeconomic development in 2 areas, in the area of aviation and in the area of agriculture. But I also want to be someone of inspiration, leading people in love, living my best life, and then also leaving a powerful legacy. That is really what I'm about. So, when I got this call to give this talk to you all on career and entrepreneurship, the first thing I asked myself is this. Is it in line with my vision? Absolutely it is, inspiring people and building people. That's what it is I want to do. So, really, that forms the basis of every single decision that I make. And the goal really is to narrow down on everything, because this world has so many things drawing for your attention. With social media, there's peer pressure, there's news, 24-hour news, there's, internet, there's so many things that are vying for your pressure, that unless you say no boldly to something, then you're really just destroying yourself, because essentially, the more that you say yes to, the more you're taken away from your time, which you can have focused on your concrete purpose. Someone may call you and say, oh, Charlie, let's go to West Hills Mall and hang out. By you saying yes to that person, what you've got to realize instinctively is you're saying no to something. And that no that you're saying is usually to something of significant purpose. So always bear that in mind, what you spend your time doing. And, sometimes it's good to look at, influential people in the world and, people who are really leading in their careers and in their institutions. If I was to mention something like Messi or Ronaldo, everyone will say football. Michael Jackson, music, Bill Gates, computing, Mike Zuckerberg, Facebook, social media, you know. It's important to really be able to nail down one or maybe two areas with an individual, because you see, the unfortunate thing in society is people become generalists and, just broad in many areas, and they don't get to focus in one area where they can be known for and where they can really make an influence. And, I like to take an example of street hawkers, hawkers on the street who sell. And, this is actually something that really disappoints me, because street hawkers are some of the hardest working people, honestly, in our country. They're people who wake up very early in the morning. They use their skill, their strength, their speed. They're balancing goods, heavy loads on their head. They're having to negotiate in the traffic, dodge traffic. They're having to do accounting on the road. There's so many things that they have to deal with. But the problem I find with street hawking is they're not targeted. And many of them may go from one day selling ice water, the next day is fan ice, to dog chains, to chocolate. And then, they end up not excelling in one area and then very quickly becoming generalists in one area. And it's disappointing because they have so much potential. Now the other extreme is the people who are known for doing one thing, and there are many people who would just focus on one area. There's a watches seller in Cantonment on the corner of one of the roads under the palm tree that is selling the best watch, honestly, in all of Accra, all of Ghana. Let me tell you this, every morning, there's a queue of people waiting to get food at this person's store. Within 2 hours, all the food is gone. Everything is finished. So the crowd disperses. She goes back home. It's the end of her day. Now this for me is also disappointing. It's disappointing because, this is someone who has conquered the 10,000 hour rule. I mean, she's been cooking for multiples of 10,000 hours, and for generations. She learned the recipe from her mother, and her mother learned it from her mother. So they've coined a fantastic product, but they're not able to scale. They're not able to recruit people. They're not able to manage their inventory. They're not able to manage logistics. They're not able to scale up and grow. So, what happens with these people who are queuing up, come 8 o'clock, if they don't get there in time, they're just going to end up leaving and going to, I don't know, a Papaya or a Burger King or KFC, where they are assured that they can get the product or the food that they want, because these guys have managed that area. So you see, this is more on the entrepreneurship aspect. The key to success isn't necessarily about knowing everything like school teaches us, but sometimes it's just about having deep domain knowledge and expertise in one area, in just one area. I love that scripture, this very one thing I do, and just being an expertise and very fickle in that area, understanding where it will be. And, people will seek you, people will look for you, people will search you. And, I can tell you that myself, that when it comes to aviation, this is an area, this is a sector that, I have personally made it a point to conquer. There's not one day that I'm not reading news on what is latest in aviation. I can confidently tell you, and I'm not ashamed to say that if anyone wants to ask me anything about aviation, particularly in Africa, I will answer them. I will give them a solid answer, a concrete answer, and I will back it up with facts and intelligence based on my 15 to 20 years of experience and my passion. And that's who I am. And people call me because of that reason. People call me. Sometimes I may not know the response myself, but I know exactly who to call. And once you can get to that level of expertise, I can say that you're really mastering your domain. And, so, all right, just moving on, the completely capable to have the tools. I really believe every single person, no matter where they're coming from, is able to have the tools that they need to get to where they want to get to. And, for me, it's possible to be entrepreneurial, to find great strength in the ability to find the right people. I've told you about my strength in aviation. I've got another passion, which is agriculture. Now, with agriculture, this is something that I just naturally have a passion towards. So you can have your one core strength, and then you can be passionate about other areas. You can have a side hustle. And for me, agriculture is my side hustle. And the keys to business, I'm sure many of you would know, is to leverage of other people, other people's resource, other people's intellect, other people's time, other people's money as well. And that's what I did when I launched my my companies in agriculture, which I'll talk about later. But you see, I see the importance in being balanced in everything you do. Because at the end of the day, you need to have a cash cow, and that could be your 9 to 5, or it could be your career, or what you're doing to earn money, which essentially is going to feed yourself. You can have a savings and investment strategy, which could be a long or short-term strategy, but then it's important to have a side hustle or a dream, something that you're working towards. And I say that because it's really important in this day and age to not be completely reliant on a career or in corporations. And I'll speak about that in a bit more detail. But my own passion I have, besides aviation, is just investing in people, seeing potential in people, and then just being able to invest in them by seeing the leadership, giving them the motivation and then the encouragement they need to reach an end goal. I mean, I have a brother who's a fantastic driver in Accra. He had no vehicle, he had nothing, so what I decided to do is to get him a vehicle. He's going to pay me back with profit, and then by the end, he's going to have his vehicle to do his own business. So essentially what is happening is I'm giving this person a seed. Yeah, I'm giving him a fruit, and I'm telling him, go and be fruitful with that. Go and make something of yourself, but bring it back to me later. So that's also is sort of, as an investor, that's what I do. And, just talking about background, I think it's really, really important to speak about this, because many of us are not coming from an area where, we were born with a silver spoon in our mouths. Many people are coming from challenging backgrounds, may not have the resources or the finance to be able to do what they need to do. But sometimes it's just about finding the right person. And what I like to say is it's all about being prepared. The opportunity or the chance will always come. You just need to be prepared for that. No matter where you are, no matter what village you came from, you can succeed no matter where you are born. Now, I find it ironic sometimes that my year group in JSS, sometimes I'm on the WhatsApp platform. I know some of them, I look at some of them, and, within the year group, some of those in my class, went on to do very menial jobs, be it hawkers or selling ice water. Some went in government, some were high flyers in corporates, We all came from the same area. We all had the same opportunities. In class, I was never a high flyer. But what differentiated me, I believe, from many other people is just knowing my purpose and knowing how to direct my life. So, okay, what next? I realize people are going to walk from this talk that we're having now, and it's just going to be, a warm feeling. It's going to be information in one ear and out of the other. And they'll continue to live a substandard life based on petty things. Or what am I going to eat today? There are people in society who are thinking about topics that are going to make a change in society. I mean, listen, just recently, a 17-year-old boy in US who was equipped with a computer and an internet connection created a dashboard. It's a website. You can Google this. He created a dashboard that enables anyone to track the progression of COVID-19 cases all across the world. Now, the way he's been able to do this is just remarkable. So many corporations, health organizations have reached out to try and poach this boy and have offered him millions of dollars just for the work that he's done. There's some people who are thinking about global issues, climate change, and thinking about issues that we are going to have to face as a people in the next 20, 30 years. They're forward-thinking people. They're not thinking about the past. They're thinking about what is going to come ahead. What do we need to prepare for as a people today? And that's crucial. That's important because so many people trust in their corporations. But unfortunately, companies, you've got to realize that companies' main focus is to generate shareholder value. You know, employees are simply numbers. And there's been a big shift when it comes to employment and the way companies treat employees in the past, I would say, decade. And I was a victim of this. I was working for a high corporate company just over a year ago, and you know, bringing in the sales, bringing in the numbers, but they had a message from shareholders that they have to cut numbers and increase profitability. In order to do that, they decided to let people go. Now, what do you do in a situation like that? You put all your emphasis into a career, into a position, into a company, and you're let go. You see, I learned from that. You see, what is important is to be forward thinking. Make sure that whatever you're going in to do is win-win. You should never just be going in because in that case, you're no better than a slave. You know, it should always be win-win. You should always be benefiting from the career that you're looking to get into. I was also recently watching a video about kids, some 50, 60 years, who were talking about what is the world going to look like in the year 2000. You know, so they were just, you know, thinking about what the world is going to look like in 50, 60 years' time. Now, would you believe that almost every prediction that these kids made came to pass? They spoke about globalization. They spoke about people being able to travel from one country to the next within the space of one day. They spoke about telecommunication, being able to connect seamlessly with people. They spoke about what's happening in the automobile world, autonomous vehicles, computing. All of these things were predictions that they came up with. They were able to accurately predict their world in the next 50, 60 years. Someone said a very interesting quote, the best way to predict the future is to create it. And you know, sometimes what challenges me is we spend so much time thinking about what is happening today and this year that we completely forget about the future. We completely forget that there's going to be amazing technological advances happening in the future. The question is, what part are you going to play in that? And what part are you going to play in bringing those advances to your industry? These are areas that I've been looking at personally. And I can tell you that in the next 50 years, you know, some of the things that we can see which are going to take over, like we know about AI that is really big now, that is going to grow. We know about blockchain and Bitcoin. We can see quantum computing, big data, drone technology is going to increase, 3D printing, 6G. Everyone is concerned now about 5G. They don't know 6G is coming, and 7G maybe. You know, so what are we doing to position ourselves for the future? If you want to get into medicine, you may want to get into law, you may want to get into accountancy, you may want to get into engineering. All of these things are coming. And unless you prepare yourself adequately to understand the intricacies of how all these areas will impact your industry, you may find yourself on the losing end. Because let me tell you one thing. In the next 10 years, 10, 15 years, 65% of the jobs that you see today will not exist in the future. You know, people have predicted jobs like accountancy. You know, nowadays you can get a software that will do everything for you. You know, jobs even like, to some extent, medical diagnosis. You know, you may be able to put your hand against a phone and it will tell you everything about your medical history. You know, there's some jobs that are going to change drastically over the next 15, 20 years. And unless we're preparing ourselves to be in the know and to understand how some of these advances are going to impact our future, then we're not going to be able to really benefit or take advantage of the wave and the rising tide. And that's really what I want to encourage you all to do. So if there's really 3 things that I want to say to you all today to note down and to ask yourselves, is know who you are. Know who you are. What is your purpose? Write down your purpose in 2 or 3 sentences, or what you believe your purpose is. Just simplify it in 2 to 3 sentences. Simplify what you believe your purpose is. This will help you to direct you towards your career path. Develop an expertise, a wisdom and knowledge in your craft. Know exactly what it is you want to do. You know, don't just say, I want to be a doctor. You know, what kind of doctor do you want to be? You know, pediatrician, gynecologist, dentist, you know, and once you can nail down exactly what it is you want to be, focus on that area. And then look in one subject, you know, or a number of subjects which you want to focus on. Because I think the best way to scale and the best way to succeed is to be a domain expert in one area. It could be two, but focus on that one area that you want to get to. It may take time getting to know what that one area is, but it will pay off. It will be worth it. People will look all across the world for you because of that one area. The third thing is execution strategy. Execution is key. You know, there's so many people who talk the talk and they don't walk the walk, you know? And I've met so many people who have spoken about business ideas and ventures and things like that, but it doesn't come to pass because it's only talk. Execution is key. So really just, you know, again, just breaking down the knowing who you are and understanding your tools and your strengths. I'm also reading a book right now, you know, again, by the same author, Malcolm Gladwell, and it's on David and Goliath. And many of us know the story of David and Goliath, the story in the Bible of David and Goliath. We all know what happened, the conclusion that, you know, David was clearly an underdog in that story. But, you know, looking at historical extracts of the tool, the slingshot and the stone that David actually had in his hands, what historians actually say is that tool is equivalent to a rifle gun in today's world. It's equivalent to a gun in today's world. So essentially what David had was a gun who he knew how to use it very well. So it's all about purpose, knowing what your strengths are and knowing what you can use very well. And, you know, I mean, this is something I like to say as well, because, you know, I've traveled, I've seen many countries, many continents. We're here, we're in Ghana, we're in a developing world, a developing country. But, you know, the developed world is not so far ahead of us in terms of technology, in terms of, you know, really just forward thinkingness. In my lifetime, China, Singapore, South Korea has gone from being an undeveloped, you know, world country to a superpower and one of the greatest innovators today. You know, it's ironic, but countries like Portugal is a great example. Portugal were brought to their knees in the last pandemic. You know, I speak a lot about Black Swan events. The last Black Swan event was the global recession that happened in 2008, 2009. And what happened is Portugal were brought to their knees. They were on the brink of bankruptcy and disaster. But Angola, which is basically their ex-colony, bailed them out, an African country. Imagine that. Imagine Ghana in 10 years' time bailing out the UK, or Cote d'Ivoire bailing out France. All this stuff is actually very possible. It can happen, and it can happen in our lifetimes. But it takes people like me and you with a forward-thinking approach and a direction and leadership to make that happen. It starts with us. So the second thing is really about knowing your craft, you know, your expertise, which I spoke about, and making sure that, you know, you do have that entrepreneurial trait. Because for me, it's not a time to, this is really not a time to just rely on just having a career. Even when it comes to your CV, if you were to go into an interview and all you have on your CV is your education, you know, your background and your results, then to be honest, you're not doing enough. Because now we're in a moment where people need to be diverse. People need to be open-minded. People need to be broad in terms of their thinking and their ability to relate with people in different aspects. You know, in my case, that's in the case of agriculture. You know, and I do that because it's an interest that I have. I constantly read up about agriculture and the benefits of agriculture and the opportunities in agriculture as well. And, you know, I ask myself, you know, what is the what is the unfair advantage that I would have by going into this sector that someone else wouldn't have? What can I bring about that someone else couldn't bring? And, you know, I use that as a basis to go out there and do what I intend to do and launch the companies I intend to launch, you know. But I mean, you know, really, the third thing, again, execute, which is really key, is just, you know, you got to know your value. You need to speak your mind. Ghanaians, we need to speak and walk in confidence. You know, hold your worth, have no regrets. You know, we don't rise, you know, I spoke about people who talk the talk, but do not walk the walk. We don't rise to the level of our expectations. We may expect to be, you know, someone who is great, a high flyer, and, you know, an entrepreneur and running many businesses and things like that. We don't rise to the level of our expectations. We fall to the level of our execution. Execution is everything. People who are doers, not just speakers, you know. One of the most challenges, I'll just tell you something, you know, personal to me. I had a very challenging year in 2017. It was the toughest year of my life, but it was also the most successful year of my life. In 2017, I told myself that I'm going to stop talking, and everything I placed my mind upon, I'm going to do. So I ended up opening my restaurant. This happened in 2017. It's something that was on my mind. It was on business plans for years. I wasn't able to do it. But finally, I was able to gather up the courage, the resources to open it. That was in March, towards the end of 2017. I was able to launch my agricultural business the same year. That was around August 2017. And then I was able to launch the crowdfunding platform Grow For Me, which I did with the help of a number of friends, also in 2017. In December of 2017, I had this vision in my heart to scale a mountain. I wanted to climb a mountain. I just wanted to prove myself that, listen, whatever I set my heart upon, I can do. You know, and I knew that if I was to accomplish that one thing, then nothing's going to get in my way. So what happened is in September, it was in September, October, I scaled Mount Aviator, which is the biggest mountain in Ghana. Then I went to South Africa. South Africa, the next month, I scaled Table Mountain, one of the biggest in Cape Town, South Africa. Then I set my sights higher. I went to the north of Africa, to Morocco. This was in November, and I scaled the Atlas Mountains. This was a 3-day trek to the top of the mountain. And then my last goal was Kilimanjaro. I told myself, listen, I am going to do this come what may. My brother came along with me. So on Christmas 2017, I set off on Mount Kilimanjaro on a trek. And it was an 8 or 7-day journey up the mountain. We had a number of guides with us helping us do it. We would climb, we would camp in tents, we would climb, we would camp. The temperature at the top got to minus 15, minus 20 degrees. The water in my backpack, it froze when I was reaching the top. But on the 31st of December, 2017, I got to the top at midnight, crossover. That's where I crossed over on 2017 in December. The top of Mount Kilimanjaro, the largest freestanding mountain in the world. And that for me was a fantastic achievement. And since then, I've set my sights on high. You know, in 2018, with a group of friends, we decided to do a bike ride, a cycle ride from Accra to Nigeria. It took us 1 week, and we cycled from Accra to Lagos in 1 week. It was tough, but we did it. And it just goes to show that, listen, if you put your mind on anything, it's possible. You can do it. You can do it. But the problem is many people just don't put their mind on things. So they just end up not doing anything. I'm going to conclude by saying this. 2019 was an amazing year, globally speaking. It was a year of harvest. It was a harvest season. It was the richest year that many organizations have ever gone into, have ever felt. In Ghana, where we live, our GDP was amongst the highest in Africa. We had just come from the back of the year of return, where the country reaped almost $2 billion in tourism. the price of commodities was high, oil price, gold price, and then coronavirus. Coronavirus happened in, it hit us around February, March of 2020. And then it brings us to this situation. I'm going to give you an example of agriculture. It's, again, something I'm very passionate about. In agriculture, after the harvest season, before you replant, you've got to plow the land. And essentially plowing the land means breaking down the soil. You see, everything that once stood on that soil, every weed, any plant that's been harvested, it turns with the plow. And what the plow does is it picks up the soil that is 15 to 20 centimeters deep, and it brings it to the surface. And in so doing, it helps the topsoil to regenerate, so that when you're planting on the topsoil, it's essentially going to feed the plant that you're going to plant on that soil. But what is unique as well is that in so renewing the foundation, the weeds that have been killed, that are pushed down to the bottom part of the soil, become manure to the benefit of the plants which are to come. So what have I just said? I've just said that the soil that was low has now become the soil on the surface, and it becomes the foundation of life-giving plants. COVID-19 has essentially plowed the whole world. The whole world has been plowed. There are banks which are in bankruptcy. There are organizations, corporates that are in negative territory. Anything that stood, many companies and organizations are now low. A black swan event. And that soil that was below is now being given the opportunity to rise up again. And that's the opportunity that I want everyone to realize that we're in right now. When it comes to your personal life, when it comes to business, when it comes to entrepreneurship, when it comes to your career, this is a renewal phase. So, know who you are, develop an expertise, and execute. Guys, that's the end of my talk. And really, I just want to give you the opportunity to ask any question you have. I'll be happy to answer that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kwame.
Okay.
That was insightful. I've learned a lot from you.
That's great. Excellent.
We would welcome some questions kindly section, and I'll just read them out. So
Okay.
if you have any question, okay, so as people bring up their questions, Kwame, I have a question.
Sure.
Yes, so after knowing your purpose, and then in the process of developing an execution strategy, what do you think it is right, for example, to build skills which you're already talented in, and probably let me give an example. If someone's purpose is to make impact in the pharmaceutical industry, and in the process of learning how to develop drugs, how to be a pharmacist, he also has the skill of probably selling. He has the selling skills. Do you think it is advisable for that person, in the process of building his education or his career around the pharmaceutical industry, do you think it is also right to get something like a side business which he can pursue even in the process of pursuing his career, just so that that side business or that mini business fetches him some substantial amount of money which he can add to his income base? Is it advisable in the process of pursuing your purpose or in the process of executing your execution strategy? Is it advisable to have other streams of income?
Listen, I mean, everything you're saying, I completely understand where you're coming from. And I'll go back to my own example. I always wanted to be an aeronautical engineer. I wanted to design aircraft. That's what I wanted to do. But I also had this passion for business. And actually selling was a skill that I had, because I could sell, you know, I mean, you give me the opportunity to speak to someone about aircraft. Listen, I will sell you an aircraft. If you've got money, I will make you buy that, you know. That was my passion. So in the end, what I ended up going through is I started my career as an engineer. And then very shortly after that, you know, my company could see that, listen, this guy has got strengths in selling. We believe he has a unique opportunity and a unique value proposition. I think we should place him in the commercial division. And that's what happened. They moved me to the commercial division, where essentially what I do now is I sell aircraft. That is my day-to-day job. I sell aircraft. And again, when I was talking about really having a niche, an area where you are an expert, you know, for me, my expert is when it comes to aircraft sales in Africa. That's my expert. And I have a unique value proposition. Listen, I'm in a company with 130,000 people. 130,000 people are in my company. In the commercial division, in commercial sales and marketing, there's no other Black people or Africans, for that matter, in the commercial division. So I realized I have a unique value proposition, because not only am I African and I understand the culture, the background of our people, but I'm able to mix that with my engineering side and get a fantastic result from that. So that's also a unique value that I have that my company, they definitely identify, and that's why they have me here, you know, and that's what makes me unique. But just, you know, on the entrepreneurial side as well, I think it's always important to have something on the side, particularly now, because we're in a stage where the world is very unstable. I mean, listen to me, we're gonna go into a period of mass unemployment. Mass unemployment. Someone came to me recently and told me, you know, I've just finished my bachelor's. I'm thinking, should I go and do my master's, or should I go straight into an employment? And I was thinking, why are you not thinking about creating employment? You know, and that's the challenge of school. It teaches you for employment. But what the world needs is people who would create employment. That's what this world needs right now. We don't need more people out there who are job seekers. We need job creators. So we can be the solution for that. And it's possible to start small and to grow yourself there. But always have in the back of your mind that I want to be a job creator. I don't want just to be someone who occupies a job. Now, I mean, in my case, yes, I work for a company, but on the side, I own a restaurant. I employ 15 people in the restaurant. I own a farm. I employ 100 people in the farm. I own a tech company. I employ some 25 people in the tech company. I'm creating employment on the side. And no matter what happens with my job, no one can take that away from me. And that's the position I want every single one on this call to be in. That position of stability. Okay?
Awesome, awesome answer. There's a question from Edward, and he
Yeah.
says, I have acquired land for agriculture, but because I'm not close to the site, how can I trust others to manage the business for me? What strategies can I put in place to get it working? That is from Edward.
It's a very good question. And I think this is something that many of us have had our fingers burnt in the past. You know, when I first studied in agriculture, you know, I studied on very small space of land, one plot, and it was very near family members in my hometown. And that's the worst decision that I made, because, you know, I started that project. I had the family members look over it. And by the time harvest came, by the time I got to my hometown, all the food was gone. Everything,
Wow.
everything was gone. And, you know, sometimes it's about finding people you trust. And this is not to say you can't use family members. You can sometimes rely on family members, but it's about finding trustworthy people. What I do when it comes to my entrepreneurial journey is I find the right resource. So the restaurant that I own in Airport Residential Area, Native Bar, honestly, I've got one of the best chefs that are out there. You know, the dishes that she creates are just awesome. You know, so I'm leveraging off that. You know, my farm, the farm that I've got now, my farm manager, he has a master's in agriculture. I mean, this guy knows how a farm works. He's educated in this. The tech company I'm working with, which is also in agriculture, he also has a master's in agriculture, and he's also started up his own company. So he understands how that works. Now listen, these relationships I have been built over years, so you can't just go out there and just find anyone and, no, it takes building. And, this is really, going back to the fabric of our nature and us as a people. We need to find people who we trust. Number one, people who are experts in what they do. I don't deal with generalists. I hope you've already heard that already. You can't come to me and say, oh, listen, I can do it. I can do it. What are your credentials? Don't just get anyone to come and farm for you. Make sure you understand their credentials, look at their results. And if you're happy with the results, then you can get them on board. So that's my answer.
Awesome. There's another question here from Raf Heck, and he says, I've tried putting my life in order by finding and doing and being good at least in one or two things. However, I get easily distracted. Now, how can one stay focused and shut distractions? This is from Raf Heck.
Very good question, Ralph. Now, this is the difference between success and failure. This is the difference. I kid you not, this is the difference. If you are not able to switch your phone off or not answer certain calls when they come, then there's a problem. If you're not able to go maybe a few days without going through social media, there's a challenge. If you find yourself glued to the TV, for example, with me, I've stopped watching the news, I've stopped watching the news, but I know what is on the news. Honestly, I know. And if anything is newsworthy, it will get to me, it will get to me. I spend my time rigorously focusing on where it is I want to get to. But then, of course, there's the family and then, other things like that, friends. I have a time for that. But when it comes to my direction, I know that anyone who comes along who tries to divert me or say something or, oh, let's go to this funeral here or this party here, it's a distraction. It's distracting you from your mission. And once you understand how poisonous that is, you'll never be able to turn away from such requests. It's in our culture. In our culture, it's very difficult, I've realized, to say no. It's very difficult to say no, unfortunately. So we end up getting dragged from one place to the next and doing one thing to the next and getting involved in one area to the next. And those who are in church, they get involved in one ministry to the next, and they find their whole life now is just focused in this one area. Once you can learn to say, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. That's the beginning of where success and focus comes. So just practice that. Okay?
Awesome. There's another question from Mens. It says niche markets, when your niche market is out of business. He's asking if it's advisable to invest in a different niche market when your niche market is out of business.
Okay, it depends what you mean by out of business. This is what I need to understand by out of business. For example, in my case, I'm working in aviation. And over this pandemic, I think it's clear, everyone knows that there's basically no airplanes flying today. So I guess in that regard, you could say that aviation is going through one of the biggest downturns when you compare it to almost any sector in the world. So, do I believe that aviation is going to die with COVID-19? Absolutely not. What I believe is that we're going through a downturn. But what I'm doing in this downturn to prepare for the upturn is where my mind is. So I know that aviation is going to come back strong. It may not come back strong in the next week or a month, but I kid you not, in 1 year, in 2 years, in 3 years, people will be traveling again. But the question is, how will they be traveling? What are the requirements for travel in the next 2 to 3 years? And what do I need to do to leverage off the fact that people will be traveling, but it's going to be different? In my industry, flying, everyone will need to wear a mask without doubt when they're flying. If I was forward thinking, I would be thinking, how can I leverage my understanding that in the next 1, 2, 3 years, there's going to be such a demand for surgical masks, because once people start flying again, these masks are going to be used in the millions. What am I going to do to prepare myself? I'm going to start maybe engaging with companies who are making these masks and seeing how they can scale, or seeing how maybe me in my own entrepreneurial way, I can get in that business to create masks for people who would travel. So I never think pessimistically. I think, what is the advantage? What is the advantage in this downturn? Nothing is really out of business. It may change, things change. So the key is about being on top of that change. You understand where I'm coming from? My restaurant, my restaurant in Accra, as soon as the lockdown came and we had to close for the 1 month, we got together as a team and we strategized. What do we need to do as a restaurant to make sure that we don't fall victim to the bankruptcies and the failures of some of these other restaurants who are not going to make it when it comes to this pandemic? What we decided we're going to do is we're going to improve our hygiene standards, we're going to improve our delivery standards, we're going to improve our presence on social media so people can see us and see what we're doing. And what I can honestly say, and this is not to boast or to impress you, but we're doing much better now than even before the COVID period as a restaurant. So every single person,
Awesome.
everyone can find a way to improve. And that's what I want you to get you all to do. Okay.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you very much. I think we have, there's another question from Edward again. He says, creating employment or business on the side means a solid capital foundation. So how do I do that with little income saved? Would you advise going in for a loan, or what capital formation plan can I put in place within 3 years?
Yeah, this is it's a very good question. And, I think it's very good because it's true. Access to capital is very challenging. It's difficult, particularly here in Ghana, in Africa. You may have the best idea, you may have the best venture and everything, but no money. And, even going in for a loan, which is going to be at a double-digit rates of 20, 30%, it just doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense for a new business particularly. So it's a very good question. What I tend to say is start small. Start small. I mean, we were talking to the guy who mentioned he's in agriculture. Agriculture is one of the areas that I've seen, it can really give triple-fold profits very easily. Just start in your back garden. Start planting corn or maize or tomato, In fact, I was speaking to someone recently who farms tomatoes in Dome in Accra. And what this guy told me, it just blew my mind away. He said he spends 2,500 to plant 1 acre of tomatoes. 1 acre of tomatoes, 2,500. How did he get the land? He went to look for an incomplete building, a place where an owner had bought the land, and he went to ask if he could use the land for farming, since they're not looking to start building straight away. So this guy went onto that land, onto that 1 acre plot of land, with his 2,500 cedis. He bought his seeds, he bought his fertilizers, he bought his tools to farm tomatoes in 1 season. The tomato season is what? 5 months, 6 months. Guys, from that 2,500, he was able to earn 25,000 Ghana cedis. 25,000 Ghana cedis. So really, what I'm trying to say is that you need to be creative in your approach. You need to ask yourself, what can I use that is free and readily available around me? Let me start there, and then let me scale the business. And then from there, I will go. So that's my advice.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I'm really picking a lot of notes from what you're sharing.
Excellent.
There's another question from Alute. He says, do you think it is important or crucial to understand economic trends and the type of economy practiced here before starting a business?
Good question. Yes, it is very crucial. You need to know your numbers. You need to know what is happening to the city. You need to know where your exposure is. You need to know what is trending. You need to, I mean, if you're looking to, for example, I mentioned I'm in pineapple farming, I'm in soya bean farming, I'm in maize farming. You know, you can ask me now. I know the price of pineapple on the market now today, but I know that that could change in the next 6 months to 1 year time. I know the price of soya as well. One bag is about 200 Ghana cedis. But I know that if that bag is brought from Temale to Accra, the price of that bag can be about 350 Ghana cedis. I know that the tube that yam, you know, when they package yam in the sacks and they purchase them up north at 500 Ghana cedis, I know that when they bring them to Accra, the same tubers of yam are sold for 1,500 cedis. You need to know your numbers, you know, and then once you know your numbers, that's where the opportunity lies. That's where you take a cut in the market and really just look at your value proposition and the value chain. So yeah, understanding
Awesome,
economy is key.
awesome, awesome. I like the angles to which you are using to answer the questions.
Excellent.
And that's really great. And I have another question here. I think that'll be the final question. And it says, how do you position yourself strategically to say no to some opportunities which might end up being distractions to your main purpose in life?
Good question. Good question. I think, I honestly believe, honestly, once you know your vision and your mission statement so well, once you know what you're about, once you know where you're going, you know, what your focus is, no one can come to you and tell you anything that is going to derail you. For example, someone may come here and say, let's go and watch them playing football down the road. Why? I mean, it's not my, I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to not be too extreme. I mean, there's a place where, okay, you want to go and relax and have fun. Yes, I get that. But once you understand your vision and what you're about so well, that as soon as someone says something to you, you will know instinctively whether it's something that is going to help you or hinder you. You would just know. You would just know. As soon as you know what you're about, you would know what the answer is. So it just goes back to knowing yourself and knowing what your purpose is all about. And then instinctively, that small feeling inside you would just tell you what it is about. I read this great book, The Alchemist, and I hope that by now you're getting from now that the fact that what I do is I read books. I try and read almost a book a week if I can do that. Some of them are audio books or e-books or physical books. But I really look at some of the greatest leaders, you know, most inspirational presidents in the world. These guys, they read a lot of books and they go into the history or an understanding of how people have made it in the past. And for me, reading just gives me so much insight. And I've read the book called The Alchemist. I don't know if anyone has read that, but one of the most famous
Yes,
quotes,
that's a very good book.
yes, one of the most famous quotes from that book is that once you set your heart on a purpose, the universe conspires to help you. It conspires. Everything in the universe will conspire to help you to accomplish that vision. And I truly believe that. You know, some of the people that I've met along my journey, just my journey by being so focused and dedicated that this is what I want to do. Some people who have come and jumped on board on the bandwagon of where I'm going have helped me so much to get to, honestly, where it is I intend to get to. The challenge is if you're not deliberate, And if you're not confident in being able to say yes or no, you're just going to get random people who are going to, associate with you, but they're going to end up holding you back. And it's key that you just associate with people who are taking you forward and not taking you back. That's important.
Awesome, awesome.
All right.
Thank you so much, Kwame. I have I have personally learned a lot from you, and what I'll say is your approach to the questions are really incredible because you appear to be a very knowledgeable person, and how you've been able to answer the questions have really opened more insights into the various sectors that you explained. And I would like to say it's been great having you. I would.
Thank you very much.
Ignacio, before you go, I'd like to have ask a few questions if that's possible for final wrap up.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, sure.
Yeah,
You can go.
it's been a great talk. I didn't join you from the start, but so far it's been awesome. I have two questions. One of them is about execution. You talked about you're finding your vision, your purpose, and planning towards it. Right now, to achieve your goals, you need to set habits. And I want to find out what are kind of habits, as an entrepreneur, as a leader, as a young person, what are these kind of habits and routines we need to stick to in order to achieve our goals and get to our purpose. And also being able to, get your goal quickly and be financially independent and whatnot. You need to, have multiple, avenues of income and stuff like that. So how do you appropriately apportion your time to keep focus on either two or three things you are doing, and just like how you are doing with aviation, with agriculture, two agriculture companies, if I should say, and still being able to meet your deadline, set your target, and able to live comfortably?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's very, very good question. Very good question. And I'll start with the one on the habits. And I think this is very key because your thinking does, at the end of the day, it shapes your habits. And your habits forms your days, your weeks, your months, and eventually your habits form your lifestyle. So what you do on a daily basis is crucial. I mean, you could look at someone's day, and from just looking at their day and their actions and what they do during that day, you could tell where they're going to end up in life. You just know, because it sets the trajectory. I've got a very rigid routine. I mean, from when it comes to waking up in the morning, um, I've got goals with regards to health, with regards to the exercise I do, with regards to the read that I need to get done. I've got a set and laid out routine. And every single thing on that routine, which I physically tick off every single day, I physically tick off, I've done this, you know, I know that all of these things are leading me towards my expected end. So I've got to the place where I have literally shaped how they say habits are formed in 21 days or 1 month or so. So I think once you're able to control your actions in 1 month and make sure that what you do consistently on a daily basis is going to focus you for the future, you're going to shape your future. I mean, I spoke about 10,000-hour rule and making sure that you spend a set amount of time focusing on your craft every single day. I mean, I'll just give you a couple of mine. I mean, for me, as soon as I wake up, I spend time in prayer. I'm a Christian. I exercise every single day. I do 150 press-ups and sit-ups every single day. I read every single day. But not only do I read books just physically, I also spend time reading out aloud, because one of the things I didn't go into is the ability for a leader to rise up. It's important to perfect your ability to be a great orator and communicate. Communication is key to everything. You can be the best, whatever, but if you struggle with communication, then you're going to struggle to some extent with leadership and being able to rally people around you, resource around you. So, of course, I spend time on aviation every day. I research what is happening in aviation. What are people doing? What is the latest technology that is about to be released? Every day I do that. I sit at my desk here and I do that. Every single day I drink warm water with lemon and ginger. It's a ritual. I do that every day for my health. I just do that consistently now. Every day I take a walk out. I mean, so there's a list of very deliberate things that I do without fail every day, and I mark off. And I just don't let the day go by without doing that. And I'm using a tool which, which is called Facile Things, getting things done, Facile Things. And it helps you input, it's very useful. It helps you input your purpose in life. And under your purpose, you input your vision. Under your vision, you can have several goals. And under goals, you can have several daily tasks. And under that, that basically forms your routine, your daily routine. So everything I'm doing indirectly is linked to that purpose. And that's how rigorous I am. And then you said the thing about the multiple avenues of revenue, and how do I really dedicate my time to that? And that's a very good question, because sometimes people can be overwhelmed if they're doing more than one thing. And essentially, this is why I try, and what I try to do is develop leaders. So I'm not necessarily one who's going to create something and then always have my fingers in there and monitoring what is going on. No, so when I started my restaurant, I made sure I recruited a fantastic manager, and they take care of everything. I mean, every now and then, if there's something, I may get a text message. But for me, I've done my duty. My vision, my goal of launching the restaurant has been birthed, and it's operating, and it's there, and it's working, and it's paying for itself. And the same with the agriculture. I've got someone who I work with on this, who is taking on that responsibility to make sure that it succeeds. And he has the expertise as well to make sure it succeeds. Everything I try and do is make sure that the people around me are helping me and not hindering me. People around me are helping me and not hindering me. And that's how you get people like Richard Branson, who are able to open 20, 30 different businesses, all profitable, and they're making him income. And he's able to do that because he's just delegated authority. That's how you do it. Make sure you get the right people on board, and they will help you and they won't hinder you. Okay?
Awesome. So, Kwame, can you kindly share? Hello, Kwame.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you kindly share? You mentioned Facile Things. Someone asked if they could search for it and then try and use it. Someone sent me a private message.
I'm just typing the details.
Okay, sure.
Okay, all right, excellent. There it is.
Okay, getting things done. Okay, Facile Things. Awesome. Thank you so much, Kwame. I would share it and also share your social media handles for people to follow and reach out to you. I've shared it now.
Okay.
Email at kbekoe@hotmail.com, your Twitter handle, your Instagram handle, and your LinkedIn handle. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll urge you all to reach out to the speaker via these handles. You can follow him on Instagram, on Twitter, and even on LinkedIn. If you have any further questions or if you want to reach out to the speaker, these are the available channels to reach to him. And this is I also dropped the book. Yes, Getting Things Done. And then the app is called Facile Things. Yeah. So if you're interested in planning your daily routine and linking it to your purpose, just take note of the book and then the app, the app Facile Things. Yes. So I would say that it's been awesome having you here, and I like the way you've been able to answer the questions. That's a display of wisdom, and I would say that I am very grateful on behalf of Global Young Leaders and Career Development. I say a big thank you for taking the time to share your insights with young individuals who are passionate about making change in their societies, young individuals who want to cause a transformation in their societies. And some are not even in Ghana. Some are in Morocco, Cameroon, Kenya, Zimbabwe, Liberia, South Africa, Botswana. They are all over the African countries. And I'll say that it's been great having you, and we look forward to having you again in the future, where this time around we would have built on what you've shared with us, and we would have practiced everything that has been shared, developing our purpose, developing our execution strategy. And when we meet again, or when we have another interaction with you, it's going to be about how we all went through the process of executing the strategies towards reaching our purpose. And I must say that I it's a privilege to have you here, and thank you so much. A lot of comments reaching to me personally, saying that they've been educated, and with regards to knowing their purpose and how to handle your purpose and how to handle your businesses in these critical times, COVID-19 times.
Yeah.
It's been great. And Kwame, I must say that I am so grateful for you to have here. It's unfortunate Rachel is not here, but I must say that today's session has been an amazing one, and I personally look forward to having you again.
Okay.
Yes. So Kwame, if you have any final words you can share with us, your final words to everyone here.
I mean, my hope out of everything is that, my hope is that, you guys will just, take on board, even if it's one thing I've said, and apply that. And I'm convinced that even if it's just the one thing that would help you, I just really want to see people succeeding in their callings. So please just look at that one thing, that whatever it may be, and feel free to reach out to me. Even if anyone has questions or anything, that's fine. I'm always open to share feedback with anyone. That's fine.
Awesome. So I'll now share our organization, the vision of our organization, and for those who just joined who don't know about our organization. GYLCD, or Global Young Leaders and Career Development, is a platform which seeks to help young individuals through trainings, workshops, to make them develop their passion and eventually solve problems in their communities and make impact in society. And together we hope to make Africa a better continent. Thank you so much, Kwame, for your time. And I'll finally share the email. If you want to join GYLCD, you can send us an email and we will reach out to you. So I'm sharing the email for Global Young Leaders and Career Development. Anyone interested can join. Just send us an email, and then we will reach out to you. So thank you all for taking part. Just before everyone leaves, just share your impression. How did you enjoy our session? What did you learn? You can just share your impression, and then we are good to go. So I want to see the comments in the chat session. Just share your impression, how you enjoy the session, and I hope we're all going to be doers of whatever we've learned here. Our speaker has shared in amazing things with us, which under normal circumstances you would have paid to have him speak on these important issues, but he took the time upon himself to share them with us. So let me know your impression. And finally, our social media pages are very active. For the video for today's session, it will be shared on our YouTube channel. So please don't forget, just subscribe, GYLCD, and you can get a video recording of whatever we've had today, whatever has transpired today. For you know, probably you didn't jot down a particular note as the speaker was speaking, so you can refer to the video and then take that note and then apply it to whatever you're doing, to your business, to your life. So kindly take notes. The recording will be shared via our social media handles. Just follow us, and really, I believe you will become a better person in your career, in your life. I mean, it's great you've been here. Thank you all, and just make sure you follow our social media handles, and I believe that you would learn a lot from us. So if you want to be a member, just send us an email via the email that I've shared in the chat session, info@gylcd.org. Just send us an email and we will reach out to you and add you to our WhatsApp platform. Our next talk session will happen same time next week, Sunday, 4 p.m. GMT. Kindly take note of the time zones and the differences based on your country, but it's 4 p.m. GMT. So stay tuned. We will keep you updated on our social media handles, our WhatsApp platforms. And thank you all for joining. Tell a friend to tell another friend that GYLCD is in the business of developing the careers of young individuals, and we want to empower you to become better, to transform your society. And I must say, it's been great having you all here. Yeah, so just share your impression, how you benefited from the program, and we will be good to go. Just share your experience, what you've learned, and please, I still insist on this. Please let us be doers of whatever we have learned, because it is in doing that we become wise. If we learn from our speaker and we don't practice it, then what's the essence? So please, in your business, in your life, if you have to re-strategize, know your purpose, know how to execute the strategies. You don't have to just talk the talk. You have to walk the walk. It's not only about talking, but actions. Letting your actions lead you to that purpose you desire. And I believe that together we will make Africa greater as a continent. So thank you all. It's been great having you. My name is Ignatius Awuche, and it's a privilege to have you all here. Join us same time next week for another awesome session. Thank you, Kwame Bekoe. It's been great having you. And
Thank you.
all I'll say is God richly bless you. So guys, yes. So we can finally sign out majestically. Don't forget to reach us. Follow our social media handles. The video for today's session will be shared on our YouTube channel. So please take notes and you all. Enjoy the rest of your day. So you can just say bye-bye before you leave.